Panama Canal, okay? Out of nowhere, you hear the president talk about, we got to take Panama Canal back. What? This lazy negotiation that was done in 1977, I believe, with Jimmy Carter, lazy negotiation. And most people don't even know the history of Panama Canal. Rob, if you have the clip of the president talking about Panama Canal, I'd love to get into it. And by the way, for some of you that are not following this thing closely, let me start off by reading a part of it, and then we'll get right into it. Trump is teasing U.S. expansion into Panama, Greenland, and Canada. His ideas calling ownership of Greenland an absolute necessity for purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world. Greenland Prime Minister Mute Eget firmly responded, Greenland is ours, we are not for sale, and we will never be for sale. While Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen reaffirmed earlier comments that the proposal was absurd. Trump also teasing annexing Canada on social media. And then last but not least, he suggested retaking control of the Panama Canal, calling it a vital national asset and urging Panama to lower fees on American ships. He warned to the officials of Panama, please be guided accordingly. Panama's President Jose Raul Mulino rejected the idea, stating every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent area belongs to Panama and will continue to, and described Trump's comments as a manifestation of gross ignorance of history. Rob, play the clip.
Has anyone ever heard of the Panama Canal? Huh? Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. I'm not going to stand for it.
Okay, while you're going through this, guys, while he's saying this, I did a video on Panama Canal, Rob. If you go YouTube, type in Panama Canal, Bid David, breaking down the whole thing. But here's 5 things you need to know about Panama Canal. The threats, Trump's threats to retake Panama Canal. This is from The Hill. Number 1, the Torrijos-Carter Treaty. Trump criticized the 77 treaty signed by President Carter that transferred the canal to Panama, calling it a deal where Carter foolishly gave it away for $1. And Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino countered the sovereignty and independence of our country are not negotiable, adding that the canal rates are fair and based on market conditions. That's 1. 2, flare up with an ally. Trump's threats to retake Panama Canal strain ties with Panama, a U.S. ally. Mulino declared every square meter. We read that. 3, Panama's management of the canal. Trump called the canal's turnover a magnanimous gesture, implied undue Chinese influence. The canal has no control, direct or indirect, from China, Mulino says. 4, for unwinding deals and treaties. And then last but not least, 5, part of a broader territorial fixation of him talking about this. By the way, I have a whole thing I want to get into with this, but Tom, I'll go to you first.
So, Jimmy Carter was trying to make the United States look less like an imperial power. What does imperial mean? Well, it's like the U.S. in Puerto Rico. It's like the French in Algiers and Morocco, where the large established countries had established beachheads and influence over foreign countries. And Carter was on this human rights campaign, which largely failed. Good heart in the right position, but he didn't get it done. He didn't want us to look so imperial. And he thought, wow, one of the ways we can do this is give Panama the canal back. But we have to remember what happened. In the name of Western trade, the United States built that canal. The U.S. built it, and was Vietnam a terrible war? And I believe the number was 55 to 57,000 men died in Vietnam. 75% of that number died building the Panama Canal. Malaria, disease, things we didn't have really our arms around preparing these workers for down there in these tropical regions, and disease went around and it was terrible. So I think it was south of 40,000, but more than 35,000 people died there. So we're looking at it. We built this to facilitate trade. One of the things that Carter did was Panama asked him, history, and no one wants to talk about this in mainstream media. They said, who's going to help defend it? Because we were all worried about about communism and militarized communism in Central America at the time. We were worried about it. Reagan would come in and get after it in Central America on the communists. We were worried about communists closing the canal to international trade. So we said, hey, part of giving it back to you for $1, we did the Neutrality Act. The canal will be neutral, but who will be the cops? And who will pay for the cops? Estados Unidos. We paid for the cops. We said,
Love your Spanish, Tom. Love your Spanish.
We will pay for the cop. We will be the cops. We will do military. We'll do security. We will not allow insurgencies. We will defend the canal. So we took on the full expense of it. When Panama in the 90s couldn't afford certain maintenance on these things, they're called locks, where the ships go in, they raise the water, and they close these things called locks. Guess who paid for that? We appropriated. So we have been maintaining. We built it. We've been doing maintenance. We've been protecting it with our military guys against this. And so now what Trump is saying, the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about because it's bad orange man all over again. He's saying, we're going to take it back and we're going to protect it from China or anybody else that wants to influence and potentially close it or influence it. And by the way, it's 40 years behind in certain repairs. 40 freaking years. So it also needs work. So it keeps and stays open. So, everybody wants to say, oh, Trump's doing this and that. No, he's actually trying to protect the business interests of many people. All the Caribbean nations that are doing business, import, export, they get it through there. Food, all kinds of stuff go there. So everybody wants to jump on Trump for this, but the truth is much deeper.
Let me tell you this. This has actually become my top 5 things he's working on.
Stop it.
Long term. Let me tell you why. And I'm going to break it down for you so you understand what is going on here. And I think it's brilliant. So if you think about in the 1600s, they said it'd be great. Rob, if you can show the map, just show the world map of U.S. and South Central America. If you can show that, and we can look at Panama for people to realize the magnitude of this and why this has to do with China. It is so important. It is so important. I've been to Panama and I've watched the canal because when you go there, I stayed at the Hard Rock, which is an hour away from the canal. If you zoom in, go to Panama map. Type in Panama map at the top, just Panama country map. Zoom in right there if you can go there. You can have, okay, so check this out. Panama Canal right there. Zoom in, that's the canal that they built, okay? If you can zoom out on the map, if you can't go through there, okay, now if you can go to the Central America map, go to Central America map, watch this here. Go on the one, on the second one, that's, you know what, if you can go back a little bit, Rob, go back a little bit, actually just go to the world map. Just go to the world map if you can have that, because it's so important to understand the power of this. The one on the left, yeah. And click on it again, the map gets zoomed in even more. Yeah. So if you look at that, if you don't, right there, Rob, you had it. Just go to that one, the pink one, yeah. If you can't go through the Panama Canal, you have to go, like imagine if you're coming from New York. Go to New York on the map, Rob, top right, pink. If you're coming from New York and there is no Panama Canal, you have to go all the way around the green to get to LA. Look at that. All the way around the green. And by the way, just to kind of give you guys some numbers on what that means. With the canal, it's only 4,970 miles from New York to LA. Without the canal, it's almost 13,000 miles, okay? With the canal, it's 12 to 14 days. Without the canal, it's 30 to 35 days, okay? And then when you look at dollar amount, with it, it's only $262,000 of fuel. Without it, it's $705,000 of fuel. Robbie can take the map out at this point. So then if you go from China to New York, China to come over here, because they're going the other way. So think China has to go the other way from California come all the way down to go to New York. Exactly. China to New York with the canal, 12,000 miles. Without the canal, 19,000 miles. So without the canal, it takes 45 days sometimes. With the canal, it takes, roughly, 25 to 30 days. So you mean to tell me this idea of Panama Canal was started in the 1600s? A French company started building this in the 1880s. They ran out of money and they kind of paused it. Then in 1904, do you know who was president in 1904? One of the greatest presidents we've ever had. His name is Teddy Roosevelt, who was president, comes in and they built the Panama Canal. Do you know how many people died building the Panama Canal? 27,000 people. Because to build the Panama Canal, you literally have to build bombs. They blew things up and people were dying. They were dying from starvation. They were dying from sickness. They were dying from malaria. They were dying from yellow fever. They're dying. 27,609 people died building the Panama Canal. U.S. builds it in how long? 10 years. And who becomes president in 1913? The face of the Progressive Party, which is who? Woodrow Wilson becomes the president. It gets done because of Teddy Roosevelt in 10 years. Who benefits from it? The world. Then who goes, who is known as a very noble, nice, kind man, good husband, good father, but a shitty negotiator and a president? A guy named Jimmy Carter goes and gives it up? For what? We didn't have to give that up. And by the way, do you know why I doubled down on Trump picking up the Panama Canal? You know why I doubled down on it? It is the only way we can prevent China from having a chokehold on U.S. long term. It is the only way. By the way, right now they need funding to finish up the construction because there's a lot of challenges right now with the Panama Canal that people are not even talking about, where ships are getting stuck, the speed, all these things that are going through. They need, I think, $5.2 billion of funding. Guess who can help you with that? The U.S. can. I hope and pray and encourage for them to double down on this. I think this is an old school move of when Andrew Carnegie did not respect John D. Rockefeller, and John D. Rockefeller said, I'm sorry, what does Carnegie do? Carnegie steal? You know what we're going to do? Don't you need to move that steel? Yeah, don't worry. I have the railroads. Go ahead and move your steel. Go ahead. Move your steel. You're going to need my railroads. I hope and pray that the U.S. left, right, and center politically get behind this idea, because this benefits Americans long-term, no matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, or an independent. Everybody should get behind the idea of Panama Canal that Trump is negotiating on. Vinny, I'll go to you next. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Pat, to be honest with you, I didn't know I wasn't like versed in the canal, but just from what you're saying, any rational person, left, right, center, it doesn't matter. That just makes sense. Okay, we have to get back to doing business, and Trump is obviously the freaking guy to do it. And if I'm speaking to Trump, Pat, if you don't mind, I want to read. I don't know if people read Donald Trump's Christmas tweet, but I'll read it, Pat. He talks about the canal in the beginning, and then Canada, and then goes a little bit to the left. He goes, Merry Christmas to all, including the wonderful soldiers of China who are lovingly but illegally operating the Panama Canal, where we lost almost 30,000 people in its building 110 years ago, always making certain that the United States puts in billions of dollars to repair money, but have absolutely nothing to say about anything. Also, Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose citizens' taxes are far too high, but if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%. Their businesses would be immediately double in size, and there would be a military protected like no other country anywhere in the world. Likewise, the people of Greenland, which is needed by the United States for national security purposes, who want the U.S. to be there, and we will. And then he goes on to saying Merry Christmas to the radical left and all that stuff. But I think he's making a pitch, Pat, and he's. I think the Canada thing is hilarious, but I'm all for the Panama Canal situation. I think it's a great idea.
Tom, you were going to jump in and say something, Tom.
Yeah, you know what? During COVID, remember we heard that that the Somalis and the Houthis were operating right there in a little area, and Adam's nodding, he knows exactly where I'm going here, with, I'm pronouncing it wrong, Djibouti?
Djibouti.
We make jokes about how it's pronounced, but that is the pinch point where container ships go up there to go through the other canal that
Yeah.
enables low-cost transport, the Suez Canal.
Suez Canal.
The Panama and the Suez Canal are the two most critical canals. See the pinch point right there? That's where the Houthi rebels and the Somali-enabled rebels were there. And if you expand that, go right up there, go up north of that a little bit, you are going to find the Suez Canal. See, it widens up there, but you see that pinch point? They patrol
Yep.
down there and they create problems down there. And by the way, that's led to huge inflation because if you zoom out, these are called the Cape routes. What Pat was talking about is the Cape route around Cape Horn, which is Tierra del Fuego, south of Chile. And there's also the other Cape route known as Cape of Good Hope, which is in South Africa. So the shipping containers have to go there. These two canals are critical. We didn't even know we were really talking about the same political dynamic for the Panama Canal. We were talking about the Suez Canal when at the end of COVID, we had all the rebels there and the container ships couldn't get through. And people were saying that it was inflationary to the people of Europe just trying to get basic goods because they had to have that extra shipping cost line on them. So the canals in modern world, these two canals are critical also to inflation because it keeps shipping costs down for people. So everybody wants to talk about Trump being imperialist. Guess what? He's also trying to keep shipping costs and keep that part of inflation down for the consumer.
Yeah, the moment you said Djibouti, I got offended. I logged off, but I'm back. I really like what you just said right there, Tom. When you start talking
Well, by the way,
appropriate, yeah, I like
who
it.
did they
Adam,
turn
last thoughts
to?
before we move on.
Wait. Who did they turn to help them knock down the Somali pirates?
I
The
have no,
US
as a
Navy.
American, I'm not interested in a Djibouti turning around. I'm not turning into anybody, Tom. I'm married. I'm not interested in Djibouti. But Adam, please, I'm trying to stay civil
They
here.
also wanted us to be the top, and we were helping the world in the Suez Canal stay open.
Tom, you're trying to get to Adam and Djibouti. You and Djibouti's, Tom. God.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead, Adam.
PBD, I know you say don't repeat things that have already been said, but I'm gonna have to double down on that Djibouti straight up, because what we learned during COVID is the supply chain is a massive, massive deal. And I'm glad that you kind of gave some context to why what Trump is talking about is so important, because to me, this sounded like almost like, what is this? Is this a ramblings of a crazy person, or is he crazy like a fox? Because you said this is one of your top 5 issues, and I'm processing what you said, PBD, because if you go according to polling of the United States citizens, they're thinking border, immigration, cost of living, inflation, crime, abortion, healthcare, wars. I didn't have the Panama Canal on my bingo card. This was not something that Trump campaigned about. But if it comes down to the supply chain and fair trade and free trade and China and Djibouti, it's starting to make a lot more sense now. So PBD, let me ask you a question. These 3 things that he's talking about, we're going to make Canada the 51st state. Oh my God, it's going to make Canada great again. All right. Greenland, where the hell did this come from? We talked about it, I believe, in 2019. He tried to buy Greenland. They said they're not for sale. And this Panama Canal thing, which you've touched on before, if you can lay out likely, somewhat likely, least likely of those 3 things, where would you put it? Panama Canal, buying Greenland, and having Canada be the 51st state. What would you say, PBD?
Exactly in the order you put it.
Yeah, I thought so.
Panama, Greenland, Canada. And by the way, I think the rest of the world outside of BRICS should support U.S. owning Panama Canal.
Tell
I
us
think the
more.
rest of the world, it's going to benefit. Look, if right now, whose ideas and method of running the world do you trust? China
Oh my goodness.
or U.S.?
U.S., obviously.
Both of them can be criticized, but at least when we argue publicly. Everybody knows our drama. Nobody knows China's drama. We're
Good
not
point.
in China. YouTube's not in China. Facebook's not in China. There's no free press in China. We don't know what the hell they're doing in China. Everybody knows our drama. Remember the Truman Show with the one comedian or whatever? Gary. Yeah, the Truman Show. Guess what? That show is about showing someone's personal life. U.S. is the Truman Show. Everybody sees our drama. So who would you rather have control Panama Canal? Us right now. Imagine if Panama Canal, do you not think Trump behind closed doors is thinking that China is planning on funding Panama Canal to take control? By the way, U.S., if China ends up taking control of Panama, you're screwed. Let me say this again to you. If China takes control of Panama Canal, you are screwed. Are you watching? Everybody in the U.S. is screwed if China takes control of Panama Canal. This is not even a joke because imagine, so now play the card of tariffs. Hey, China, if you do this, we're going to put tariffs on you. Oh, go ahead. If you do that, I'm shutting down any exports from Panama to U.S. for the next 30 days. Go ahead and put the tariffs on me, U.S. You lose your tariff card. The only way your tariff card has power is if U.S. owns Panama. I think we need to find a way to get this thing done. I talked about this a little over a year and a half ago. I absolutely love this idea. For those of you that bought our gear, yesterday we wore the Future Looks Bright, what do you call it?
Christmas gear.
For everybody, it was sick. Rob, if you can go to vtmerch.com and go to the Future Looks Bright pajamas that we had on, it was absolutely awesome. We took a family picture together. And then these sweaters that say Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas. Our entire family was wearing this while we went to Disney World, while we went to, Universal. And we'll give you a little bit of insight in those two as well. But the pajamas, the Christmas gear, a ton of things that are going on right now is the end of year sale that happens right now, okay? That happens right now, 50% off select items for you to go take advantage of. Some of the items are going to be like, wait a minute, that's 50% off, it's 50% off, but it's only going to last 4 minutes, not going to last a long time. First come, first serve. So for some of you that are wanting to buy gifts, and some of you guys that are the type that are very, very overly prepared, like my wife, go buy this stuff for next year so you're ahead of the game. You'll save yourself 50%. Today is when the wise people spend money. Today is when the wise people go invest and save that 50% for next year. And anybody who places a purchase over $200 gets a $50 gift card. The first 50 that place the order over $200 get a $50 gift card today. So go to vtmerch.com and place your order. I love seeing people around the world sport the gear Future Looks Bright, and everybody is starting to say Future Looks Bright. It's becoming a thing. We want 1 million people around the world to wear that. If you're somebody that's a fan of us and what we do and what we stand for, go out there and sport some of that Future Looks Bright gear, hat, shirt, whatever it may be for yourself.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.